At my wedding, my dad looked at my husband and told him he had chosen the wrong daughter, and in that single moment, my world collapsed. I had always imagined my wedding day would be filled with laughter, joy, and the kind of love that people talk about for years. The flowers were perfect, the church glowed with soft sunlight pouring through the stained glass windows, and the sound of the organ carried a kind of magic in the air. Guests whispered happily, smiling as if nothing could ever go wrong. But even before the words left my father's mouth, I felt something strange brewing beneath the surface. It was like the entire room was holding its breath, waiting for something I couldn't yet see. The polished wood pews smelled faintly of pine. The lilies on the altar were fresh, their perfume sweet but heavy, almost suffocating. I gripped my bouquet tighter, forcing my smile to stay in place, telling myself this was the happiest day of my life. Then it happened. Just as the priest began his blessing, my dad stepped forward. His shoes echoed against the marble floor, each sound cutting through the quiet air. He didn't look at me, he looked straight at my husband, his voice sharp, steady, and cold enough to slice through glass. "You chose the wrong daughter." The words didn't just fall, they detonated. The church erupted in gasps, whispers, and stunned silence. My mother's face went pale, her hand flying to her chest. My husband froze, his jaw tight, his hand still gripping mine, but now trembling. And me? I couldn't breathe. I stood there in my gown, veil brushing against my cheeks, wondering if I had misheard him, wondering if this was some twisted joke. But the look in his eyes told me it wasn't. His expression was calm to calm, and it chilled me more than if he had shouted. I wanted to scream, to ask him what he meant, to demand an explanation in front of everyone staring at us. But my voice wouldn't come out. My mind spun with questions, memories flashing back of every time he had looked at my sister with pride, every moment I had convinced myself he loved us equally. Had I been wrong all along? The air grew heavier with every second of silence. My husband's grip on my hand tightened as if to ground me, but even he couldn't mask the confusion in his eyes. Guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, whispers turning into murmurs, suspicion spreading like wildfire, and inside me, something cracked. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. My father had meant every word, and with that single sentence, he had poisoned the happiest day of my life. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, anger pushing against the shock, questions clawing at my mind. Why would he say this? Why now? What did he mean by wrong daughter? I didn't know it then, but those words weren't just cruel. They were deliberate. They carried the weight of secrets buried for years. Secrets that were about to surface, whether I was ready for them or not. And as I stood there in the middle of the church, heart pounding, eyes burning, I knew this wasn't just the beginning of my marriage. It was the beginning of something darker. I had no idea then that my father's cruel words were only the first move in a twisted game I was never meant to win. Every smile felt fake after those words. The priest's voice droned on, his words blurring into meaningless noise, as if someone had stuffed cotton into my ears. I tried to repeat the vows, but my father's sentence looped inside my head. "You chose the wrong daughter," over and over, like a cruel recording. I couldn't switch off. My husband's hand squeezed mine, gentle but firm, the way he always reassured me when I was nervous. But this wasn't nerves. This was something darker, heavier. When I glanced sideways, his jaw was clenched, eyes darting between me and my father as if trying to read a language neither of us understood. From the pews, I caught sight of my sister. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't horrified. She was smirking. Her lips curled in a way that told me this wasn't news to her, it was victory. My stomach dropped. Did she know what he meant? Had she expected this? The guests weren't subtle either. Their whispers floated like smoke through the air. Did he really say that? Which daughter? Why here? Why now? Heads leaned together, eyes shifting toward me like I was some tragic figure in a drama they'd been waiting to unfold. The church smelled of lilies and polished wood, but suddenly even the flowers seemed sour, their sweetness rotten. The candles flickered in the draft, shadows bending across the walls. Every sound, the scrape of a shoe, the stifled cough of a guest, was amplified in my skull. I forced my lips to move, repeating the vows, though I barely knew what I was saying. My voice trembled, words cracking, but I tried to mask it with a nervous smile. On the outside, I was a bride. On the inside, I was a ghost. When the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," my husband leaned in, his lips brushing mine, but I could feel it, he wasn't with me fully. He was distracted, searching my face for answers I didn't have. The applause felt hollow. Clapping hands, fake cheers, all of it layered with tension so thick I could barely breathe. I smiled for the pictures, held my husband's arm, pretended so hard my cheeks ached, my throat burned, but the questions wouldn't stop. Why would my father say that? Why now? Of all moments. What did wrong daughter mean? After the ceremony, as guests spilled out into the garden for the reception, laughter and chatter returned to the air, but it wasn't real. I felt the stares, the pity, the curiosity. Strangers congratulated me with empty smiles, their eyes already glancing past me toward my father, toward my sister, toward the drama they craved. I found him standing near the fountain, drink in hand, as if nothing had happened. His suit was perfectly pressed, tie immaculate, but his eyes held that same cold calmness that had gutted me inside the church. I walked up to him, my heels crunching on the gravel, my heart beat louder than the chatter around us. "Dad," I hissed, my voice trembling but sharp. "What did you mean by that? What was that supposed to mean?" He looked at me slowly, tilting his head the way he always did when he was about to dismiss me. His lips twitched, not into a smile, not into a frown, but something crueler, something between mockery and boredom. "You really want to know?" he asked, his tone low, almost playful. "Yes," I shot back. "You ruined my wedding. Everyone heard you. Tell me what you meant." He chuckled then, a soft, cold laugh that made my skin crawl. The kind of laugh that told me he had the answer, but he enjoyed holding it hostage, and without another word, he set his glass down, turned his back on me, and walked away, leaving me with nothing but the echo of his laughter in my ears. My father's laugh lingered long after he disappeared, and I knew then whatever secret he carried, it was meant to destroy me. It wasn't the first time my father made me feel invisible. I wish I could say his words at the wedding were the first time he cut me open like that. But they weren't. They were just the loudest, the cruelest echo of something I'd been living with my entire life. Growing up, my sister was always the golden one. I still remember how her laughter filled the house like a favorite song, and how my father's eyes would soften every time she entered the room. He would brag about her grades, her beauty, her bright future, and me? I was there too, but always blurred, like an extra in my own family's story. If I brought home a good grade, he barely nodded. If she brought home the same, he gathered the whole family to celebrate. If I performed at a school recital, he clapped politely. If she even walked onto the stage, he whistled and shouted her name. I learned early that silence was safer than reaching for praise that never came. I worked harder than anyone noticed. Late nights, studying under the weak yellow glow of my desk lamp, while the house hummed with the sound of my father and sister laughing in the living room. I thought if I just kept trying, if I was patient enough, one day I'd earn that same look of pride, but it never came. One memory seared itself into me, my 10th birthday. I had spent weeks saving coins to buy a cheap little cake mix. I baked it myself, decorated it with shaky hands, and waited for him to notice. When I brought it out, beaming, my father barely glanced at it before saying, "Don't cut it yet, your sister's recital starts soon. We'll celebrate later." We never did. Instead, I sat in the dark kitchen that night, the untouched cake in front of me, the faint sound of applause for her performance leaking in through the walls. That was the night I learned that my birthdays, my milestones, my happiness, they were disposable. I told myself it didn't matter. I convinced myself that one day he'd realize I was just as worthy. That one day, I'd be enough. But when he stood up at my wedding and said, "You chose the wrong daughter," it was like every shadow of my childhood wrapped itself around my throat. His rejection wasn't new, it was just final. My mother? She tried sometimes. I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes, but she never stepped between us. She never defended me. Maybe she thought she was keeping the peace. Maybe she thought I was strong enough to survive it. But every time she stayed silent, it was another nail in the coffin of who I was supposed to be. And my sister, she thrived in it. She wore that crown proudly, tossing her hair, knowing she was the chosen one. Sometimes she would whisper things to me when no one else was listening. "Dad will never love you the way he loves me." I used to think she was cruel. But maybe she was just telling me the truth I didn't want to hear. At the reception, after my father's laugh still burned in my ears, I slipped away from the noise. I found myself wandering through the hallways of the house I had grown up in, every picture frame watching me with judgmental eyes. The smell of old wood and polish was the same, the creak of the stairs unchanged. It was like stepping back into the prison I'd never escaped. I don't even know why I opened that old box in the attic. Maybe I was desperate for answers, maybe just for proof that I wasn't crazy, that the favoritism had always been real. Dust stung my nose as I pulled out stacks of forgotten albums, yellowed pages, bent corners, and then I saw it. A family photo. My father, my mother, my sister, and me. Except something was wrong. My sister was standing in front, her arm hooked into my father's. He was looking at her, smiling. My mother was on the other side. And me? I was shoved to the corner, half hidden behind my mother's shoulder, my face barely visible. I stared at that photo until my hands trembled. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't just that day. It was the story of my entire life captured in one image. I had always been the shadow. But then I noticed something else. Something that made my blood run cold. In the corner of the photo, where my small hand rested, there was a bracelet. A bracelet I didn't recognize, one that didn't belong to me. And my father's eyes weren't just on my sister, he was glancing at that bracelet, too. That's when I realized the favoritism ran deeper than I ever imagined, and the truth was hidden in that bracelet. One photograph made me question my entire childhood. I hadn't been searching for anything, just flipping through boxes while trying to distract myself from the humiliation of the wedding. But when I pulled out the old family album, my stomach tightened. Something about the way the pictures were arranged felt deliberate. I traced my fingers over the glossy paper. Page after page, my sister stood front and center, her smile wide, my parents' hands draped proudly on her shoulders. And me? I was either cut off at the edge, half hidden in the background, or not there at all. I whispered to myself, was I really always this invisible? The living room was quiet, but I swore I could hear my pulse in my ears. The smell of old paper and dust clung to the pages. Every photograph was a memory I didn't want to remember but couldn't unsee. The door creaked. My sister walked in, her heels clicking on the wooden floor. She glanced at the album, then at me, and her lips curled into something between a smirk and a smile. Going through the archives? She asked lightly. I forced my voice steady. Strange, isn't it? Every picture. It's you. Always you. She tilted her head, brushing her hair behind her ear. Well, maybe I was just more photogenic. Photogenic? My voice cracked, frustration spilling out. Dad never came to my school plays, but he sat through every one of yours. Front row, flowers in hand. Her eyes darted away for half a second before she laughed. Don't take it personally. Parents have favorites. It's normal. Her casual tone sliced through me more than any insult. I slammed the album shut, dust puffing into the air. You say that like it's a joke, I muttered. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Maybe it is. Or maybe you just weren't worth the attention. The words landed like a blade. My chest tightened, but I forced myself not to flinch. Instead, I stared back, letting the silence hang. Inside, my thoughts churned. Was this always the truth? Did my father intentionally choose her over me, not just out of favoritism, but for something darker? I tried to steady my breathing. You knew, didn't you, that I'd always be second place? She blinked, then smiled faintly. Not second place, just out of the race. Her heels tapped as she walked away, leaving me frozen with the album on my lap. Hours later, the house had gone quiet. I stayed in the living room, the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. I flipped the pages again, slower this time. My throat burned as I saw the patterns. My sister blowing out birthday candles with Dad beside her. My graduation photo? Missing. My first soccer trophy? No picture. Then something strange. A photo tucked between two pages, almost hidden. It was faded, edges torn, but clear enough. Dad's arm around her shoulder, his smile wide. And me standing in the corner, blurred, almost erased by the way the photo had been cropped. I muttered under my breath. He wanted me out of the picture. The air felt heavier, like the room itself was pressing in. My hands shook as I held the photo closer to the lamp. Why did it feel less like negligence and more like intent? Just then, faint voices carried down the hallway. I froze, my father's voice low, controlled, and my sister's sharper, almost conspiratorial. We have to keep him in the dark, my father whispered. My breath hitched. My chest locked up, and I gripped the photo so tightly it crumpled in my hand. I pressed my ear against the wall, knowing I was about to hear a truth I wasn't ready for. Sometimes the truth isn't found, it's overheard. I had slipped into the shadows near the kitchen during the wedding reception, thinking I'd be invisible. But the hum of laughter and clinking glasses couldn't drown out what I was about to hear. The room smelled of fried food and perfume, but my senses narrowed to the faintest movement near the doorway. Dad leaned in toward my sister, his posture stiff, voice low, coated in a strange tension. "She'll find out eventually," he murmured, eyes scanning the room like a man hiding something heavy. "But let her enjoy her little wedding for now." My stomach dropped. My blood ran cold. Every fiber in me screamed to move, to confront, to demand answers, but I froze, heart hammering like a drum. Why does it sound like they're guilty? My thoughts raced. What secret could be so heavy that even today, with everyone celebrating, they whispered about it like it was poison? I pressed myself closer to the wall, feeling its chill seep into my skin. My hands trembled, brushing against a forgotten napkin on the floor, the rough texture grounding me in the moment. Every laugh and toast in the hall felt distant, muffled, like I was underwater. "She's never going to suspect a thing," my sister said softly, almost teasing, yet the corner of her mouth twitched nervously. "Not yet. We just have to make sure she stays distracted." Dad's sigh was quiet but heavy. "I hate this. I hate lying to her. But it has to be done." The way they spoke, it wasn't just secrecy. There was a shadow over it, a careful calculation, a hint of fear they couldn't disguise. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms, trying to steady my swirling thoughts. What are they hiding? Why did Dad favor her so much all these years? I peeked around the corner. The reception hall was alive with music and chatter, but my mind was deaf to it. I replayed every childhood memory, the missed recitals, the unacknowledged achievements, the constant applause for her while I faded into the background. And now, whispers that confirmed my suspicions weren't just in my imagination. "You have to trust me," my father said, but the tone wasn't comforting, it was tense, almost pleading. "It's for her own good. And yours too, eventually." Eventually? My sister's laugh was soft, but I caught the edge of something sharper, something amused in a dangerous way. "I think she might figure it out sooner than we hope." My chest tightened. My head spun. I wanted to scream, to storm out, demand answers, but I couldn't. I had no proof yet, only the weight of overheard words and the sickening realization that the people I trusted most were deliberately keeping me in the dark. The hum of the hall faded into the background as I focused on them. Their small movements, the way Dad rubbed his temple, how my sister shifted her weight nervously, spoke more than words. I felt the first spark of something dark ignite inside me. This wasn't just favoritism anymore. There was intent, planning, secrecy, and I had stumbled onto it by accident. I leaned back against the wall, trying to calm my pounding heart. But then I caught her eyes from across the room. My sister. And she was smiling. Not a casual smile, the kind that hides amusement, but a knowing, piercing smile that sent a shiver down my spine. She knew I'd heard. I wanted to move, to confront, to run, but her eyes held me in place. And I realized that everything I thought I knew about my family was about to unravel. The wedding I dreamed of felt like a trap. I couldn't escape. Music swirled around me, laughter echoed, glasses clinked, but none of it reached me. My chest felt tight, as if the joyous hall had turned into a cage of whispers and secrets. I blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears that threatened to spill, but the tremor in my hands betrayed me. Why does everything feel wrong? I thought. Why can't I enjoy this day like everyone else? My mind kept replaying what I overheard in the kitchen, my father and sister, whispering about keeping me in the dark. Every smile, every toast, every congratulatory hug now carried a subtle sting. Hey, are you okay?" My husband's voice broke through my fog. He took my hand, gentle, insistent. His thumb traced little circles over my knuckles, warm and grounding. "Talk to me, please. What's wrong?" I shook my head quickly, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Nothing. It's just the nerves, I guess," I whispered, voice shaky. Inside, panic clawed at me. If I tell him, it might ruin everything. But if I don't, how do I pretend? Across the hall, my father stood up to give his toast. I should have been happy, proud even. But the words that poured out felt like acid. I always knew she'd have everything I could never give. And my younger daughter, well, she tried her best, he said, forcing a grin. But you must all agree, my eldest has truly found her place in the world. the hall froze for a heartbeat. My stomach sank, every relative's glance now sharp, judging, loaded. My sister smiled wide, her eyes glinting with satisfaction, while I felt like a ghost at my own wedding. The applause sounded hollow. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Instead, I retreated inward, tracing the rough edge of my wedding bracelet as if it could anchor me to reality. This isn't just favoritism anymore. This is intentional. Every missed recital, every ignored achievement, it all fits. My dad. He really said that? My husband murmured, voice low, worried. He tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear. I can't believe he would. I mean, why would he say that on your wedding day? His eyes searched mine, pleading for truth. I don't know. I lied, swallowing hard. Maybe he didn't mean it. Maybe it's just awkward phrasing. My tone cracked, betraying the storm behind my forced calm. The sound of silverware hitting plates seemed sharper, louder, echoing off the walls. The air smelled faintly of roses and burnt candle wax, oppressive under the weight of my father's words. Guests shifted uncomfortably, murmurs rising. Sensing the tension between the words and the silence that followed, I could feel the pull of two realities, the happy day everyone else was living, and the dark undercurrent I was drowning in. Every forced toast, every laugh, every photograph taken of smiling faces felt like a mockery. My sister's gleaming smile was now a blade, cutting into the fragile bubble of joy I had built for myself. Then, my husband's hand tightened around mine. His voice was steady but heavy with concern. What did your dad mean? I froze, caught between revealing the truth and protecting the life I had dreamed of, and for the first time, I wondered if I'd ever be able to escape the trap my family had built. The night I was supposed to feel like a wife, I felt like a fraud. The suite was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioner, but inside me, a storm raged that no luxury could calm. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my hands trembling as I pulled my husband close. I can't stop thinking about what my father said, I whispered, voice cracking. About my sister, about me. It wasn't right. He froze, a frown knitting his brows. Wait, what did he say? His voice was gentle, but I could see the concern ripple through him like a warning bell. I swallowed hard, the words tasting bitter. He said I was fine, but my sister, she's perfect. Everyone thinks she's perfect. And I'm supposed to be happy for her, but I can't. And I overheard them, my father and my sister, talking in the kitchen, whispering. He exhaled slowly, running his fingers through my hair. Hey, listen. I didn't marry her or you for what your father thinks. I married you because of you. Because of us. I wanted to believe him, really I did. But the seed of doubt had lodged itself deep, gnawing at me. Does he feel it too? Or am I imagining it? The luxury of the suite, the soft silk sheets, the faint scent of jasmine in the air, the golden glow from the bedside lamp felt like a cage now. Even his warmth couldn't reach me. I just feel like, my voice faltered, like I'm not enough, like everything I've done, everything I am. It's not what matters. My husband's hand tightened over mine. Stop it, he said firmly, eyes intense. You are more than enough, more than anyone could ever ask for. I love you, every piece of you. I forced a nod, but my mind wouldn't stop spinning. Every toast, every smile at the reception, every favor heaped on my sister, it all circled back to the same question. Was my father trying to tell me I'm replaceable? That my sister is somehow better suited for him or for my husband? The clock ticked, its sound unnervingly loud in the suite. My heart pounded with a mixture of fear and suspicion. Shadows of doubt danced across the walls, flickering under the lamp's soft light. I tried to focus on his steady breathing, the rise and fall of his chest, the steady beat of the man I loved beside me, but the whispers I'd heard earlier played in my mind, looping endlessly. I need to know, I murmured, more to myself than him. I need to know if he really. I stopped, swallowing hard, afraid of what the answer might be. He shifted, brushing his lips against my forehead. Forget him. Forget what anyone says. I married you, not her. You have to trust that. I nodded again, pretending to find comfort in his words, but my mind refused to still. Trust? How can I trust when everything around me screams otherwise? Hours passed. He fell asleep, exhausted from the long day, and I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My thoughts had grown dangerous, obsessive. Every smile, every whisper, every clink of glasses at the reception became a piece of some puzzle I couldn't yet solve. The soft glow of his phone on the nightstand caught my eye. He had left it unlocked. My chest tightened. I shouldn't, but I need to know. I reached for it, heart hammering, breath caught in my throat, and there it was, a message from my sister. My hands shook as I read the words. And in that instant, I realized the game had just begun. My sister had texted my husband on our wedding night. I stared at the glowing screen in my hand, my fingers trembling so violently that I nearly dropped it. The words were simple, short, but every syllable felt like a blade sliding into my chest. If you ever regret, you know where to find me. My mind went blank for a second, then spiraled into 1,000 different horrors. My wedding night meant to be perfect, a beginning. A promise had been hijacked by betrayal I didn't even know could exist. I felt dizzy. The air in the suite suddenly thick and hot. The scent of leftover champagne mingling with the faint vanilla from the candles, now turning suffocating. I wanted to scream, but the words lodged in my throat. Did my father plan this? Did he hint at her because he wanted me to fail? The thought was absurd, yet the gnawing seed of suspicion had taken root. I loved my husband, I knew I did, but doubt had its claws in my heart. Every toast, every forced smile from my family, every subtle glance he had exchanged with me earlier in the day now seemed tainted. I finally whispered, almost afraid my voice would shatter. Did you get a message from her? He turned to me, alarm flaring across his face. What? No, nothing. Why? His voice was sharp, but his hand unconsciously fidgeted with the cuff of his shirt. I noticed it, and my heart clenched. A nervous tick. Nothing, I said, swallowing. It doesn't matter. No, he said, sitting beside me. Tell me, what did she say? His tone was pleading, earnest, but there was a subtle edge of tension, like he was trying too hard to convince me or himself. I held the phone out, my hands shaking. Read it. He glanced at it, eyes widening, then quickly exhaled and leaned back. It's nothing. Just don't let it get to you. I swear, it means nothing. He tapped the screen, and with one swift motion, the text disappeared. Deleted. Gone. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the words lingered in my mind like smoke curling into every corner of the room. Nothing? Deleted? Can words just vanish from memory as easily as they vanish from a phone? The room felt suddenly colder. Shadows from the bedside lamp stretched unnaturally across the walls, as if mocking my unease. I could hear the faint tick of the clock, each second stretching longer than the last. Even his steady breathing couldn't anchor me anymore. The silk sheets beneath my hands felt foreign, like a luxury I didn't deserve, a trap I couldn't escape. I kept replaying the text, reading between the lines, dissecting every word, every implied intent. If you ever regret, was it flirtation? Was it manipulation? And why on my wedding night? My stomach twisted as I realized this wasn't a one-off misstep, this was calculated. I can't just let this go. And yet, he was beside me, his eyes soft, his hand warm on my arm. Could I trust him? Could I trust myself to interpret reality correctly? Suspicion ate at me. I found myself drifting, obsessed with the idea that my husband might have entertained her messages before. My pulse raced, my thoughts became feverish, tracing back months, every interaction, every phone glance. The seemingly innocent smiles, the little moments, what if there was more I hadn't seen? And then I discovered he had messaged her back months before the wedding. It wasn't just favoritism, it was betrayal. I couldn't stop myself. My hands moved almost automatically, guided by a mix of dread and desperation, as I unlocked his laptop and scrolled through months of messages. Each ping, each notification felt like a hammer striking my chest. Flirty emojis, lingering compliments, playful teasing, all of it pointed to a hidden world I wasn't supposed to see. My sister's name lit up more times than I could count, her words carefully casual but dripping with intent. The room seemed to close in around me, the faint hum of the air conditioner now harsh and grating. The perfume from the wedding bouquet had wilted, leaving only a faint musty smell of papers and polished wood. I sank onto the edge of the bed, gripping the laptop like it was a lifeline and a weapon. I kept asking myself, was this my father's plan all along? Did he orchestrate this? My sister, my husband, everything? My heart ached with a mixture of fear, anger, and disbelief. When he walked in, casual as ever, my voice was tighter than I intended. What is all of this? He froze mid-step, blinking rapidly. I can explain. His fingers twitched nervously at the waistband of his trousers. His tone was pleading but clipped, like he'd rehearsed this line 100 times. It was never physical. Nothing happened. I swear. Nothing happened? I echoed, my voice rising. Months of messages. Months of lies. You call that nothing? My hands shook as I slammed the laptop closed. He ran a hand through his hair, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Look, it meant nothing. You have to believe me. Believe you? I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow in the now stifling room. I've been married under a lie. My father's words, maybe he wasn't just cruel. Maybe he was warning me. His eyes darted away, lingering on the door, then back at me. You're overthinking. This is blown out of proportion. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him confess, but I also knew that the fight wasn't with him anymore. The betrayal had roots deeper than just a flirtation. It had been planted long before I even said I do. The room felt colder now, the lamplight casting long shadows that seemed to mock my shock. The polished wooden floor creaked under my pacing feet, echoing in the silence that hung between us like a physical weight. I could hear the faint buzz of my phone on the nightstand, another reminder that secrets were still alive, still waiting. The air was sharp with tension, metallic almost, as though the oxygen itself resented what had been revealed. I dove deeper, checking his social media, cross-referencing tagged photos, comments, and private messages. Every detail painted the same picture: subtle flirtation, casual intimacy, and an ease of communication that was far too familiar. My chest tightened, my vision blurred. How could someone I trusted completely be so carefully hiding this? How could my own father hint at this and I, naive, trusting, ignored it? I wanted to confront them both at once, to demand answers from my husband and my sister, but fear held me back. What if it spiraled further? What if it confirmed the worst? Even now, he sat on the bed, his posture rigid, pretending calm, while the tension radiated off him in waves. My mind raced with plans of confrontation, exposure, and revenge, but for now, the truth alone felt like a blade pressed against my heart. The next morning, I found a letter slipped under my door with my father's handwriting on it. The words in that letter broke me more than his wedding speech. I unfolded the cream-colored stationery with trembling fingers, the familiar smell of my father's ink and old paper filling my nostrils, suffocating in its intimacy. Each word etched on the page felt like a scalpel against my chest. I've always been too weak for the life I deserve, he wrote, the letters looping neatly yet cruelly. As if mockery could be penned in calligraphy, my eyes darted down the lines, and my stomach knotted tighter with every sentence. He praised my sister, calling her the strong one, the natural choice, words that dripped with venom beneath the veneer of familial advice. My father didn't just dislike me, he orchestrated, nudged, maneuvered, and schemed. And worst of all, he admitted it without shame, implying that my husband should have naturally gravitated toward my sister instead of me. The quiet of my apartment became unbearable, broken only by the faint tick of the wall clock, each second hammering the betrayal deeper into my bones. Did he really arrange things behind the scenes? My chest felt hollow, as if the air had been stolen from the room. My mind raced through wedding photos, conversations, and casual family dinners, all now tainted with his manipulations. I felt like a marionette, strings pulled by a hand I had trusted all my life. I whispered aloud, barely able to form the words. You set this all up? There was no answer, of course. Only the muffled hum of the refrigerator in the next room. I imagined his voice, calm and persuasive, weaving excuses and justifications, the same way he had done when I was a child, masking cruelty as guidance. You'll thank me someday. The letter ended. I felt like screaming, but no sound emerged. Thank you? I repeated bitterly, my voice cracking. For destroying my marriage? For turning my family into a weapon against me? My husband's earlier attempts at defense echoed in my head. It meant nothing. You have to believe me. Could he have known? Could he have been as manipulated as I felt? And my sister, her laughter, the private messages, her ease, it all made sense now in a horrifyingly deliberate way. The sunlight slanted across the hardwood floor, casting long, sharp shadows across the room, as though mirroring the depth of the betrayal. I could feel the paper trembling under my fingertips, warm from the nervous sweat on my hands. The faint smell of my father's cologne lingered in my memory, sickly sweet, a haunting reminder of the man who had shaped my life and warped it. My heart pounded with a metallic taste in my mouth, and even the silence seemed heavy, pressing against my temples like a vice. I reread the final lines, over and over, trying to dissect meaning, to prepare myself for the revelation. He actively tried to sabotage me. Every conversation, every small decision I'd questioned suddenly clear as his meticulous planning. I thought of my husband, caught unknowingly or not, my sister, smiling with unlearned confidence, and myself, trapped in a web I hadn't seen forming. My moral compass spun wildly. I felt both fury and despair. What could I do now? How could I reclaim agency over a life rigged from the start? I muttered under my breath, furious yet calculating. I won't let you get away with this. Not you. Not anyone. But the letter ended with one chilling line. You'll thank me someday. I couldn't tell if I was losing my mind or if my whole life was a lie. The letter sat on the kitchen counter like a weight pressing me into the linoleum, its words curling in my memory with every blink. Too weak. Not enough. Your sister is the strong one. I forced myself to breathe, but every inhale seemed to drag in more doubt, more fear. Was my husband really ever mine or just a pawn in my father's cruel chess game? My mind replayed every conversation, every laugh, every glance. Did he truly love me, or had he merely acquiesced to my father's manipulations? I felt unmoored, untethered from the life I thought I understood. Even my mother, the one person I used to think could anchor me, seemed to drift when I pressed her about Dad. Her eyes flicked away too quickly, lips pursed, hands smoothing an invisible crease in her dress. What aren't you telling me, Mom? My heart thumped like a warning drum, each beat a reminder that everyone I trusted might be complicit. Night fell, but sleep refused me. I lay in bed, the letter clutched to my chest as if it could somehow shield me from the truth. I traced the familiar loops of my father's handwriting with my finger, the ink smudging faintly, a metaphor for everything that had blurred in my life. Every whispered "I love you" from my husband now seemed suspect, every smile from my sister a hidden dagger. My thoughts collided, spiraling into an impossible tangle, fear, anger, grief, and the tiniest flicker of strategy forming in the back of my mind. Mom, I asked quietly, my voice tight with strain, did he really push them together? She stiffened, blinked, and exhaled slowly, her tone measured but evasive. I just want you to be happy, honey. Happy? My voice cracked, sharp and incredulous. Is that why everything has felt like a setup? Is that why nothing ever made sense? Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of her apron, her eyes darting toward the living room, then back. Your father. He's always wanted what's best. She trailed off. The room seemed smaller somehow, the shadows stretching long and cold across the patterned wallpaper. The faint hum of the refrigerator felt intrusive, like a spectator to my unraveling sanity. The air smelled faintly of her lavender perfume, but instead of comfort, it made my head spin, mingling uneasily with the metallic taste of dread in my mouth. My hands shook slightly, brushing against the edge of the counter, and the dim light flickered as if echoing my faltering grasp on reality. I sank onto the chair, clutching the letter to my chest, as if pressing the words closer could make them less real. Every memory, the quiet dinner the night before the wedding, the way my husband lingered a little too long on my sister's text, messages, the casual glances my father shot at me suddenly felt like pieces of a puzzle I had never meant to solve. My mind raced, weighing possibilities, imagining scenarios where everything I'd believed in was staged, orchestrated, premeditated. How could love exist in a house built on manipulation? Could I even trust my own instincts anymore? Mom, please, just tell me the truth. Did Dad plan all of this? I whispered, desperate. Her eyes widened ever so slightly, a micro-expression I could not ignore. Your father has always wanted what's best for your sister, she murmured, almost casually. The words twisted in my stomach like a knife, and for the first time, I realized the betrayal wasn't just my father's, it might be everyone around me. Sometimes silence hurts more than words. I cornered her in the kitchen again, the same place where the letter had first shattered my world. My mother's hands trembled as she stirred nothing in the teacup, the porcelain clinking softly against the saucer like a muted alarm. Every time I tried to pin her gaze, her eyes slid away quick, deliberate, practiced. I wanted answers, clarity, a single thread of truth, but her evasions felt like punches in the chest. How long has she known? The thought churned like acid in my stomach. She's never been cruel. Not exactly, but complicity isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, invisible, poisoning everything it touches. Every story I'd been told, every comfort I'd leaned on now seemed contaminated. And the more I pressed, the more I realized her silence wasn't protecting me, it was shielding him, defending the favoritism that had haunted my life. I felt rage coiling inside me, sharp and hot, a living thing I could almost hear hissing, not just at my father, but at everyone who had let him shape the narrative, who had allowed him to decide which daughter was worthy. My chest tightened, and I ran a hand over my face, tracing the tension etched into my jaw, wishing I could shake this weight off. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking with a mix of hurt and anger, "why won't you tell me the truth?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. She avoided my eyes, her fingers twisting the napkin in her lap. "Your father. He just has his ways," she murmured. "That's it?" I demanded, my voice rising, desperate for more than the usual vague reassurance. "That's all I get after everything?" She flinched slightly, almost imperceptibly, before replying, her voice a whisper edged with guilt. I'm sorry. Her words stumbled and fell silent, leaving only the ticking of the wall clock and the faint hum of the refrigerator. The afternoon sun filtered through the lace curtains, painting lines across her furrowed brow. The air smelled faintly of tea and old wood, yet the comfort it should have offered felt twisted, suffocating. The warmth of the sun hitting my arms couldn't dispel the chill crawling down my spine. Even the quiet, the absence of anything else pressed against me, amplifying every beat of my heart like it was drumming a warning. She knows more than she admits. I sank onto the chair opposite her, the kitchen suddenly too small, to suffocating. Every word she left unsaid became a mirror, reflecting my doubts, my fears, my fury. "You were never supposed to find out." I couldn't shake the thought, the way it crept in uninvited, clawing at the edges of my mind. How long had they woven this web around me? How many moments had been manipulated, orchestrated, silenced? The realization that my mother had chosen quiet complicity over protection ignited something fierce inside me: determination, anger, a cold, calculating need to uncover every secret, every hidden truth. I thought of every time she smiled politely at my father's decisions, every time she deflected my questions with "it's for the best," every subtle glance she cast when my sister or father was nearby. Each action had been deliberate, each silence a wall separating me from reality. I could almost see the threads now, thin and almost invisible, weaving through our lives. And for the first time, I understood that the betrayal wasn't just my father's, it had layers, and she was part of them. "Mom, I need to know everything," I pressed, leaning closer. "No more half-truths, no more silence." She froze, her hands tightening around the napkin like it was a lifeline. Then, in a voice so low I barely caught it, she whispered, "You were never supposed to find out." Her words struck me like ice water, freezing every thought and hope. In that instant, I realized the war I had imagined was far smaller than the battlefield I had just uncovered. Her words made my skin crawl. I recoiled as she whispered, the air between us thick with tension. Every syllable dripped with a venomous weight I hadn't been ready for. Years of confusion, doubt, and sleepless nights suddenly converged into a sharp, piercing clarity. My father had been manipulating my life long before I even realized it. My marriage, the one I had thought was mine by choice, had teetered dangerously close to being stolen, orchestrated quietly behind my back. I gripped the edge of the counter until my knuckles whitened, my mind racing through every dinner, every casual comment, every seemingly innocent gesture that had now been infected with betrayal. How much of my life has been a lie? The question twisted in my chest like a knife. Anger bubbled beneath the surface, hot and relentless. But so did fear that the people I loved most weren't who I thought they were, and that my own choices had been carefully nudged by someone else's agenda. I could see it now, like a shadow moving behind the curtain. Subtle invitations, family dinners, whispered suggestions, all carefully designed to bring my husband and sister closer while I remained oblivious. I felt a shiver run through me, not just fear, but the realization that I had been powerless while the strings were pulled. "Mom, what are you saying?" My voice cracked, a mixture of disbelief and rising fury. She bit her lip, her hands twisting together, trembling. "Years ago, your father, he tried to push your sister and your husband together. He invited him over for dinners, secretly, without telling you." Her words stammered out, uneven and laden with guilt. I blinked, unable to process the betrayal fast enough. "Why didn't you stop him?" Didn't you see what that could do? I begged him to, she whispered, her voice almost breaking. I begged him to leave it alone, but he never listened. He thought he knew what was best for everyone. The cold truth sank in like ice spreading through my veins. My life had been subtly, carefully sabotaged, and no one had intervened in time to protect me. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the sunlight cutting harsh lines across the tiled floor. The smell of tea lingered, but instead of comfort, it made my stomach churn. My hands trembled from the heat radiating up my arms, a mix of rage and disbelief. Outside, a car alarm wailed faintly, a discordant soundtrack to the chaos erupting inside me. Even the ticking of the wall clock seemed to mock me, marking the moments of deception I had unknowingly lived through. I paced back and forth, the floor cooled beneath my feet, as fragments of my past clicked into place. Every subtle glance from my father, every suggestion, every forced smile from my mother now revealed its hidden purpose. The betrayal wasn't just a possibility, it was a reality, meticulously executed. My husband had been unknowingly drawn into a web spun by my father, my sister subtly nudged towards someone who should have been off limits. I felt the sting of tears, frustration mingling with a growing need for clarity. I had to know the extent of what had been done behind my back. I couldn't trust my memory, my assumptions, or even the smiles of my family. Something tangible, undeniable, I needed proof. And in that moment, I realized it was time to confront the spaces they had hidden from me, the corners of our lives they had locked away. Mom, tell me everything. I need to know everything he did, everything you saw. Her eyes darted nervously toward the hallway, and her voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't want you to ever find out. I thought it would destroy you. And then, later that night, I found it a secret drawer in my father's office, filled with letters, photographs, and documents I wasn't meant to see, each one a dagger aimed straight at the heart of my life. The smell of old paper and dust felt like betrayal itself. My hands hovered over the drawer handle, trembling as though it held not just papers, but the skeletons of my life. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, but curiosity fueled by anger and disbelief pushed me forward. I forced the lock open, and the scent of musty paper filled my nose, thick and suffocating, mingling with the faint metallic tang of dread. My mind raced. How deep does this go? How much of my marriage, my choices, my trust, were shaped by his schemes? Kneeling on the study floor, I pulled out envelopes, photographs, and receipts, each one a thread unraveling the tapestry of my life. There they were, images of my husband laughing with my sister, their smiles too intimate, too knowing, captured years before I had even entered the picture. The laughter in those photos now seemed mocking, echoing in my mind. Was I a backup plan? All along, the thought burned hotter than any anger I had felt before. I whispered to myself, voice tight and uneven, this can't be real. No, it can't. A soft creak behind me made my heart lurch. What are you doing here? My mother's voice was low, almost pleading, carrying the faint tremor of guilt. I didn't turn, my eyes fixed on a photograph. Mom, look at this. Look at them. When I didn't even exist yet, she swallowed hard, hands twisting together, avoiding my gaze. I warned you. I didn't want you to see this. Your father, he's obsessed. Obsessed? I snapped, my voice sharp, a mix of fear and fury. Obsessed? He tried to rewrite my life, my marriage, everything. Her lips quivered, and she whispered, I couldn't stop him. I was too scared. For all of us, the study felt smaller now, oppressive, lined with shadows from the desk lamp. The faint hum of the heater sounded like a distant heartbeat, irregular and anxious. Dust motes floated lazily in the warm lamplight, settling on the letters like tiny tombstones of my stolen years. My knees ached from kneeling, but I couldn't move. The air felt heavy, thick as the secrets surrounding me. Each envelope I opened revealed more of the meticulous design behind my father's obsession, his manipulation as tangible as the brittle paper beneath my fingers. I sifted through receipts, dinner invitations, even hotel slips, evidence of calculated attempts to draw my sister and husband together. It was methodical, cruel, and deliberate proof that my father's favoritism was never just preference. It was a strategy. My heart pounded, torn between disbelief and a rising, cold fury. I realized I had been living in a carefully curated illusion, every memory of innocence now tainted with deception. I gritted my teeth, holding back a scream, thoughts colliding. Should I confront them now? Expose him? Or gather more evidence before I strike? The moral weight pressed down, but so did the undeniable urge for justice, for revenge, for reclaiming my life from a man who had treated it like a chessboard. Mom, this isn't just favoritism anymore. This is manipulation. My life, my choices, everything. My voice shook, trembling between accusation and disbelief. I know, she whispered, tears spilling. I see it now. I should have stopped him, but I didn't. I was scared. But the last envelope in the drawer wasn't photos, it was a marriage contract draft, with my sister's name on it, inked and official looking. A proof of my father's ultimate betrayal. Seeing my sister's name next to my husband's made me feel erased. My hands shook as I held the envelope, the paper crackling like brittle bones under my fingers. Each word on the draft contract cut deeper than I expected. Dowry agreements, family obligations, even a date scribbled in neat handwriting years before my husband ever proposed to me. I felt like I had been living someone else's life, a stand-in for a plan my father had drafted decades earlier. Was my love real? Or was it just the last piece of a puzzle he had designed around my sister? Anger, disbelief, and heartbreak collided in a storm inside me. I could barely breathe. My mind spun with questions. How long had my father plotted this? How much of my marriage was my own choice? Could I forgive my husband if he truly never knew? The uncertainty clawed at my chest, twisting my stomach into knots. I wanted to scream, but my voice was trapped behind a dam of betrayal. I confronted him that evening, words spilling out before I could filter them. Why? Why is my sister's name here? Why does this contract exist? His face went pale, eyes darting nervously, like a man caught in a trap. I never saw this before, I swear. Never. I had no idea. I stared at him, searching, hoping for some flicker of truth. Then why? Why does it look like this was planned for her, not me? His hands gripped mine, warm, familiar, pleading. I admitted once I had a crush on her years ago. Yes, but it meant nothing. I chose you. Because of you. Because I love you. I wanted to believe him. I clung to that declaration of love like a lifeline in a storm. But the contract sat between us, a shadow of doubt I couldn't ignore. My trust fractured, a mirror cracked into jagged pieces, each shard reflecting betrayal I didn't want to see. Even the tenderness in his voice now seemed tainted by what-ifs and possibilities. Was this a lie he didn't know he was telling? Or had love truly won against decades of my father's manipulations? I want to believe you. I really do, I whispered, voice trembling. But how do I trust anything now? He swallowed, eyes flicking away. I swear, everything I did, every choice I made, it was for us. I never wanted her, never, I swear. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in as tension thickened the air. The faint scent of ink from the contract mingled with the aroma of the evening rain seeping through the window. Outside, thunder rumbled, distant yet insistent, as if echoing the turmoil in my chest. Light from the lamp glinted off the paper, highlighting the neat signatures and dates like a cruel spotlight on my father's long-hidden intentions. I could feel my pulse in my temples, a relentless drumbeat, each beat reminding me that the life I thought I owned was tangled with deceit. I paced the room, glancing repeatedly at him, at the contract, trying to reconcile the man I loved with the shadow of the plan I had just uncovered. My mind toggled between doubt and hope, anger and longing, betrayal and desire. I realized that even if he was innocent, the knowledge of my father's scheming would forever haunt me. Every memory, every shared moment, now bore a hidden edge of suspicion. I wanted reassurance, but even his reassurances felt fragile, like glass that could shatter with the slightest pressure. Was I just a replacement? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper, the accusation more fragile than I intended. No, he exclaimed, desperation spilling over. Never. You're the only one. I chose you because I love you. Nothing else matters. I wanted to believe him. But before I could respond, a message pinged on my phone the next day. My sister herself decided to come clean. She smiled when she confessed, like she enjoyed my pain. My chest tightened as her words settled over me like ice. I had imagined confrontation, tears, apologies, but never this twisted, smug revelation. My sister's voice was calm, almost teasing, as if she were reading a script she had written just for this moment. They talked before he met me, and Dad encouraged it. Each syllable struck like a hammer against my chest. For the first time, rage edged out my despair. The helplessness I had felt for weeks evaporated into sharp clarity. I saw them clearly now. My sister, with her rehearsed smile and casual arrogance. My father, the puppet master with his obsessive schemes. And my husband, the man I had trusted completely. Now, figure caught between desire and deceit. My thoughts spun, a storm of anger and strategy forming in the eye of my horror. They underestimated me. They assumed I'd crumble quietly. But I'm not their victim anymore, I'm their reckoning. Her voice was soft, almost melodic, but venom dripped through every word. I know. You must be shocked, but he and I talked before he met you. Talked? I echoed, fury lacing my tone. You mean, flirted, schemed, whatever it was. She tilted her head, eyes glinting with amusement. Harmless, really. Just words, plans, nothing serious. Your dad thought I'd be a better match. He always did. I gritted my teeth, forcing my voice to remain steady. And you're okay admitting this now? Like it doesn't erase everything I believed about my marriage? She smirked, leaning back casually, as if we were having a friendly chat instead of tearing my world apart. Oh, come on. You knew it was complicated. But honestly, he probably still loves me more. You know, her arrogance ignited something primal in me. The bitterness, the betrayal, the years of feeling overlooked, replaced my confusion and fear with a clear, burning purpose. If she thinks I'll be broken by her words, she's wrong. I've survived their games, I'll make them regret every whispered secret. Every plan hatched behind closed doors. I could feel the weight of the room pressing down on me, the polished wooden floor reflecting her smug posture, the faint smell of her perfume mingling with the damp scent of rain from the open window. Each detail etched itself into my mind, evidence of their casual cruelty. Even the light flickering off the chandelier seemed to spotlight her arrogance, mocking me. I stepped closer, lowering my voice, but letting the intensity drip from every word. You enjoy this, don't you? Watching me unravel? Her smile didn't falter. Maybe a little. But can you blame me? The truth is, you were never supposed to have him. I was. That's how Dad wanted it. A surge of fury coursed through me, but I contained it. I let her think she'd won. Let her believe I was still her victim. She's underestimated me, and that mistake will be her downfall. The room seemed smaller now, the walls lined with their judgment and secrets. The soft hum of the ceiling fan mixed with the distant rumble of thunder, a mirror of my escalating pulse. My palms itched not for confrontation yet, but for control, for the power I was about to seize. Even the faint metallic scent of the rain on the window pane sharpened my senses, reminding me that every detail mattered, every move could be leveraged. By the end of her confession, I had mapped it all out in my mind. The lies, the betrayals, the arrogance of two people who believed themselves untouchable. I realized I didn't need to plead, cry, or negotiate. Their secrets were weapons. Their pride, the trap. And I finally knew exactly how to strike. Tonight, everything changes. Tonight, I stopped being the victim. That night, I drafted a plan that would destroy them both using their own secrets against them. If they thought I was weak, they were about to learn otherwise. For the first time in weeks, a sense of control surged through me. Every betrayal, every whispered lie, every glance of smug superiority from my sister and father had led me here. I wasn't trembling in fear anymore, I was calculating, observing, planning. My chest still thumped with adrenaline, but now it was a drumbeat of empowerment. I could see the dinner unfolding in my mind like a play I had rehearsed 1,000 times. The table, the clinking of cutlery, the casual jokes masking tension, I'd be ready for all of it. The photos, the letters, the recordings, each a nail in the coffin of their arrogance. They underestimated me. They thought I'd fold, cry quietly, let them continue their games. Tonight, I would rewrite the rules. Even my husband sensed the shift. His eyes met mine across the room, hesitation mingling with determination. He had been caught in their web too, but unlike me, he had only recently realized its extent. I knew his guilt, his confusion, but I also knew he could be an ally. Together, we could corner them with the truth. I leaned close to him, voice low but intense. You're ready to do this? To finally stop pretending? He swallowed, the color in his face fluctuating. Yes. I never wanted to hurt you. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I nodded, feeling a surge of relief and renewed focus. Good. Tonight, I need you calm. Listen. Act shocked at what's revealed but follow my lead. We're exposing them. Every secret. Every lie. His jaw tightened. I trust you. Let's end this. I spent the next few hours moving like a shadow through our home, collecting evidence, testing the recording device, arranging envelopes containing letters and photographs that map the web of deceit. Each object felt heavier in my hands than the last, not with weight, but with significance. The bracelet Dad had given my sister years ago now symbolized betrayal. The folded letter tucked beneath it would speak louder than any confrontation. As I adjusted the settings on the recorder, the faint hum of the living room fan seemed louder than usual, as if the house itself was holding its breath. The scent of polished wood mixed with faint candle wax created a surreal atmosphere, calm on the surface, chaos lurking underneath. I could hear my own heartbeat, quick and irregular, but steadying with each careful step. The thrill of control mingled with the lingering pulse of fear, a cocktail that sharpened my senses. I whispered to my husband again, remember, let him underestimate you. Let him think you're still naive. Then watch their expressions crumble. He exhaled sharply. I've never been this nervous. I smirked slightly, a rare shadow of satisfaction crossing my features. Good, that's exactly how they'll feel. Uneasy, off balance. Power shifts when you least expect it. The rain tapped lightly against the windows, rhythm syncing with my careful movements. Shadows from the chandelier danced across the walls, stretching and twisting like silent witnesses to my plan. Even the faint metallic scent lingering in the air, the residue of Dad's old cologne, reminded me of his pride, his arrogance, the very traits that would betray him tonight. I rehearsed the order of revelations in my mind, subtle cues, timing the recordings with a question, letting letters fall just at the right moment, watching their carefully crafted facades crack. Every detail mattered: tone, posture, reaction. Every flicker of light, every sound of cutlery, every shift of shadow would amplify their unraveling. By the time the first guests arrived, my hands still shook slightly, but it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. I felt power for the first time in months, a dizzying, intoxicating sensation. I had transformed from a silent victim into an architect of reckoning. Their arrogance had fed my strategy. Their secrets had armed me. And tonight, they would all pay through their own words, their own confessions, their own pride. The night of the dinner, my father raised his glass completely unaware that I was about to destroy him. The truth tastes bitter when served at the dinner table. I had spent days orchestrating this moment, and now the air felt thick with anticipation and tension. Every polished fork, every folded napkin, every glass of wine waiting to be raised felt like pieces of a larger trap. My chest was tight, my hands tingling not with fear, but with the thrill of finally reclaiming control. I glanced at my husband across the room. His eyes were mirrors of my own determination, nervous but resolute. I could almost hear my father's smug satisfaction, his arrogance vibrating in the air as if the chandelier itself amplified it. He thinks this is another ordinary evening, I thought. He has no idea how meticulously I've set the stage. Each photo, each letter, each carefully timed recording was poised to unravel years of manipulation and lies. I felt the pulse of power ripple through me. For the first time, I was no longer the victim, I was the orchestrator. I whispered to my husband before the first toast, "Stay calm. Watch their reactions. Let the first wave of shock hit before we strike again." He nodded, swallowing hard. I've never been this anxious in my life. I gave him a faint, reassuring smile. Good. That nervous energy will mirror theirs. Now, we begin. The guests arrived, laughter and polite conversation floating through the dining room. The smell of roasted meat and fresh bread filled the space, masking the tension that simmered beneath. My father, seated at the head, raised his glass. His eyes sparkled with self-satisfaction as he praised my sister for her unmatched grace and charm. Every word was a reminder of the favoritism, the cruelty, the deliberate dismissals I'd endured for years. Not anymore, I thought, reaching beneath the table to retrieve the first envelope of letters. The metallic click of the recorder being activated barely registered over the clinking of silverware, but to me, it sounded like the starting gun of a race I intended to win. The dinner, outwardly elegant and serene, felt like a battlefield with invisible lines drawn in the polished wood and flickering candlelight. I cleared my throat lightly, voice calm but carrying authority. "Father, I think it's time we discuss something important." His brow furrowed, lips curling into a forced smile. "Important?" What could possibly be? I interrupted, sliding the first photos across the table. Perhaps these will jog your memory. Gasps filled the room. My sister's fork clattered onto her plate. This is lying, she stammered, eyes wide with panic. I placed the letters beside the photos, letting the evidence speak louder than any accusation I could voice. The letters, the recordings, everything shows the truth. You encouraged her, praised her while manipulating me, while my husband, was just another pawn. Time seemed to stretch and compress at once. The smell of wine mixed with the metallic tang of rising anger in the room. Shadows from the chandelier danced across my father's face, highlighting every twitch, every micro-expression of guilt and fury. I could see the blush creeping up his neck, the tightening of his jaw, the flicker of eyes that no lie could mask. My sister's face contorted between disbelief and terror, hands trembling as she tried to grab the letters. Finally, I thought, a cold satisfaction settling in. They feel the weight of their own sins now. Father slammed his hand on the table, startling a few guests. How dare you? These are lies, fabrications. I leaned forward, voice steady, deliberate. The evidence doesn't lie. Your manipulations, your favoritism, it's all here. Your words, your encouragement for her, all documented. My sister's attempt to scream or protest dissolved into silence as the recordings played, her protest swallowed by the undeniable proof of betrayal. The room's temperature seemed to drop with every playback. The hum of the chandelier fan sounded unusually loud, almost accusatory. The candle flames flickered, shadows leaping across polished silverware. The subtle aroma of baked bread and roasted meat became a stark contrast to the bitterness in the room, a sensory reminder of the facade we'd all been dining under. The recorder's faint buzzing filled the silence, cutting sharper than any voice. Even the texture of the tablecloth beneath my fingertips seemed electrified with anticipation, as though it too sensed the impending unraveling. I felt a shiver of satisfaction as each secret unfolded. Every lie, every concealment, every subtle manipulation my father had relied on to keep us in line now twisted back on him. For years, I had felt powerless. Tonight, I held the reins. But as his face twisted, I realized there was more to uncover, more to expose. His anger, raw and unfiltered, would soon betray even deeper transgressions. And then, in his anger, my father said the one thing that made everyone turn against him completely. Sometimes anger is the rope people use to hang themselves. The room went silent, but not the tense, suffocating kind. It was electric, charged with fear and disbelief. I felt my heart hammering, but not with anxiety. It was the pulse of victory, sharp and intoxicating. For years, I had carried the weight of his favoritism, his cold disapproval, and now I was finally watching it unravel before my eyes. Yet, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered, "Don't let it fool you. This isn't over. His fury is only beginning." I could see him, my father, pacing like a caged lion, his hands twitching, every muscle screaming restraint and rage. His eyes, usually so controlled, were wild, darting from one relative to another as if searching for backup. His lips trembled, not from weakness, but from the raw energy of someone losing control for the first time in decades. I stayed calm, my hands folded on the table, pretending to sip water while every fiber of me thrummed with anticipation. "You think you've won?" he shouted, voice cracking with fury. "Do you know what you've done? I wasted my life on you." My mother gasped, clutching the edge of her chair. "Charles, please, stop," she pleaded, voice trembling. "Wasted," he roared, slamming his fists against the table. "You were never the daughter I wanted. Never. All these years, I sacrificed everything. And for what? For you to humiliate me in front of everyone?" I leaned back slightly, letting the room absorb every word. "The truth isn't humiliation, it's accountability. You chose your actions, and tonight they've been exposed." His face contorted, sweat glistening on his temples, nostrils flaring. I noticed the little ticks I'd never seen before, his thumb rubbing the corner of his wedding ring, his foot tapping rapidly under the table. The guests recoiled slightly, sensing a storm about to break beyond mere words. My mother's hands shook as she clutched her pearls. Her mascara had already smudged with tears. My relatives whispered, exchanging horrified glances. Finally seeing the man behind the polite, dominant mask, I felt a subtle thrill, like standing on the edge of a cliff. The wind roaring below, knowing I'd planted the rope but not yet pulled the final knot. This is the culmination, I thought. Every slight, every manipulation, every favor shown to her while I suffered, it all led to this moment. I don't deserve this, he screamed, voice raw and broken. I built this family. I worked, I provided. And this is the thanks I get? You built a house of lies, not a family, I said quietly, letting the words cut like glass. Tonight, everyone saw it for what it is. He spun on his heel, storming toward the door, but paused as if the words themselves had a physical weight. His hands gripped the frame, knuckles white. You'll regret this. You'll see, he muttered, but the threat was hollow, drowned out by the stunned silence. The chandelier's light flickered as he pushed the door open, casting jagged shadows that danced along the walls. The faint scent of burned candles mixed with the lingering aroma of the dinner, creating a strange juxtaposition of warmth and tension. Chairs scraped against the hardwood as he left, echoing like a drumbeat of his retreating authority. The temperature in the room seemed to drop, leaving a chill that clung to my arms, reminding me that while I had taken control tonight, the aftermath would still linger. For the first time in my adult life, I felt a subtle, almost dizzying sense of triumph. He had been exposed, humiliated in front of everyone he thought he controlled. My relatives' expressions ranged from shock to quiet admiration, some even nodding subtly in solidarity. My mother's tears streamed freely now, a mixture of relief and grief. And yet, deep within me, I sensed the tension that never fully dissipates after a battle. The war isn't over. He will strike back in ways I can't yet see. A week later, I received an anonymous email with a video attached. The past has a way of resurfacing in the most painful ways. I stared at the screen, my stomach tightening into a knot that refused to release. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the raw, suffocating clarity of what I was seeing. It was my sister and father, filmed in secret, their voices sharp with anger and regret. The camera angle was hidden, probably placed on a shelf or table, capturing every twitch, every tremor in his voice, every forced smile enrolled I from her. Who recorded this? Why now? My mind raced, heart hammering with a mixture of dread and vindication. Every word they exchanged was like a knife carving open wounds I thought had healed. My father's tone, usually so commanding and smug, was stripped raw, brittle, trembling. He admitted something I had only suspected. He had tried to gift my husband to my sister, manipulating her feelings, orchestrating betrayal behind the facade of a happy family. And my sister's voice, laced with anger and frustration, accused him of ruining her chance, of poisoning her life with his games. I felt both vindicated and horrified, yet, beneath the satisfaction of evidence in my hands, a darker unease gnawed at me. Someone had filmed this, hidden in shadows, watching, recording, and now sending it to me like a message. Was it meant as help or as a warning? Who knows my life this intimately? And why choose now to reveal it? You can't just control everything, Dad. My sister's voice cut sharp through the silent apartment in the video. You ruined my chance. And for what? Your stupid favoritism? My intentions were for the family's sake, he replied, voice shaking, almost pleading. I tried to protect. I tried to guide you. I never thought it would hurt like this. Protect me? She snapped, a bitter laugh in her tone. You tried to gift me what was never yours to give. And for years, you've been poisoning everything. I leaned closer to the screen, eyes narrowing, absorbing the micro-expressions I had trained myself to notice over years of reading their faces. The flick of his eye when lying, the slight curl of her lip when masking panic, the nervous tap of her fingers on the table. Each detail screamed authenticity, leaving no room for doubt. The faint hum of my laptop filled the otherwise silent room, a mechanical heartbeat against the storm of emotion in my chest. I could almost smell the lingering scent of heated tea, the faint metallic tang of tension that the recording had captured. Shadows flickered across my wall as the video played, mimicking the unease crawling over my skin. The room felt colder, the weight of secrecy pressing down, pressing me into the chair as if the past itself was pushing me to my breaking point. I paused the video, hands pressed to my face, swallowing hard. Each replay made the room smaller, tighter, suffocating. I had proof, irrefutable proof of their manipulation, but the questions multiplied faster than the answers. Who recorded this? Are they watching me now? Is this a gift or a trap? My pulse throbbed in my ears. Every rational thought wrestled with instinctive fear. This video could destroy them completely, but the anonymity of the sender added a venomous twist I hadn't anticipated. and yet, a part of me recognized the opportunity. If wielded correctly, this evidence could finally balance the scales, exposing the deceit, and maybe, just maybe, give me the control I had been denied for so long. The email ended with one line: "This isn't the end. After destruction comes the silence of rebuilding." I sat on the edge of my bed, sunlight slanting through the blinds, dust motes dancing like tiny memories in the quiet. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the sharp sting of betrayal, only the dull ache of survival. Therapy had become my anchor, journaling, a lifeline, and slowly, painfully, I started learning how to trust my husband again. Some nights, I still question everything. How could I ever truly believe in him after all the manipulation and lies? Yet, even in my doubt, I felt a fragile spark of hope. Outside, the world had shifted. The whispers had spread through our community. Everyone knew the truth now. My father's carefully curated reputation lay in ruins, his pride shattered. And my sister, she had withdrawn completely, bitterness etched into her every move, her once confident stride replaced with sullen silence. For a fleeting moment, I let myself believe that peace had returned, that the storm had spent its fury. But even as I clung to that belief, the memory of the anonymous email lingered like a shadow in the corner of my mind. Who is still out there watching? And what else do they know? "Mom says you're finally smiling again," my husband said softly, resting a hand over mine as I scribbled in my journal. His voice carried caution, but also warmth, an unspoken plea for me to believe in him. "I think I'm learning," I admitted, voice barely above a whisper, uncertain yet honest. "Some days, it feels like I'll never trust fully again, but I want to try." "I have to." He gave a small nod, eyes shadowed with concern but holding steady reassurance. "You don't have to rush. I'll wait as long as it takes." Even my friends noticed the subtle changes: the way I held my posture, the quiet confidence in my answers, the slower rhythm of my steps. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine again, reclaimed from the chaos that had consumed it. The scent of fresh tea mingled with the faint perfume of jasmine from the garden outside, grounding me in the present. Light streamed through the half-open blinds, painting stripes of warmth across my journal and laptop. I could feel the soft hum of the city beyond my windows, a gentle reminder that life was moving forward, whether I was ready or not. The air in the apartment carried a subtle chill from the evening breeze, a whisper of unease that reminded me some shadows never fully fade. I forced myself to embrace the small victories, laughing without guilt, sleeping without dread, journaling without hesitation. My therapy sessions helped me untangle the knots of fear and resentment, giving me strategies to cope with the lingering toxicity. Every entry in my journal, every candid conversation with my husband, felt like laying another brick in the fragile structure of a new life, yet the email still haunted me. Its tone was deliberate, its timing unnerving, a ghostly echo of my father's rage and my anonymous benefactor's control. I had no way to trace it, no clue who had sent the video or if it was meant to guide me or torment me further. Even in my tentative peace, I felt the tension of unseen eyes, the unshakable sensation that my story was not yet finished. Then one evening, I found an envelope in my mailbox with my father's handwriting on it. I thought I'd finally escaped, but his words dragged me back. The envelope had felt heavier than it should, the paper inside thick, almost deliberate, as if the weight of his intentions could press through my fingertips. I had convinced myself that the chaos was over, that the storm had spent its wrath. My father's arrogance and my sister's bitterness were behind me, or so I wanted to believe. But the moment I unfolded the letter, a cold pulse ran down my spine. The handwriting was unmistakable, each stroke familiar, precise, almost cruelly elegant. I read the first lines with a shaky exhale. "Congratulations. Congratulations on surviving. You've won." A mocking, twisted sort of pride wrapped around his words. My stomach churned. He wasn't congratulating me out of admiration. He was confirming that he had tried, that he had tested me, and I had passed his invisible, perverse trial. But then, the final lines: "Remember, the wrong daughter always wins in the end." My fingers trembled, gripping the paper until the edges creased. I could feel the air in the apartment grow thicker, heavier, as if the walls themselves were leaning in, listening. His message was not a reflection, it was a weapon, slicing through the illusion of safety I had fought so hard to rebuild. A low, hollow panic gnawed at the edges of my mind. Had he left something behind? A hidden threat, a planted secret, a final game of control? I tried to tell myself to breathe, but even the act felt mechanical, forced. I survived his sabotage, but at what cost? Are you okay? My husband's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. His tone was quiet, cautious, yet heavy with concern. It's a letter, I whispered, words trembling like leaves in a storm. From him. He knelt beside me, taking the envelope gently, scanning the words with a frown that mirrored my unease. And it says, I couldn't look him in the eyes. It congratulates me. But then there's a line. A warning or a threat? I can't tell. He wrote, the wrong daughter always wins in the end. His jaw tightened, and he exhaled slowly, the muscles in his neck rigid. He's trying to unsettle you. Don't give him that power. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But the echo of my father's manipulation was a phantom tugging at my mind, clawing its way through the calm I'd tried to reconstruct. The envelope crackled in my hands, the paper thick and fibrous, carrying the faint scent of ink and ash, as though it had been waiting in shadows before reaching me. Shadows pooled at the edges of the room, stretching long across the wooden floor in the evening light. A sudden draft rattled the window latch, and the distant hum of the city outside felt intrusive, unwanted. The apartment, once a sanctuary, now seemed like a stage set for the next act of his obsession. The air tasted metallic, sharp, and the low creak of the floorboards under my shifting weight mirrored the tension curling in my chest. I knew what I had to do. Burning it was the only symbolic closure I could allow myself. I fetched a candle, its flame tiny yet defiant in the dim room. As the paper caught fire, the edges curling and blackening, my chest tightened. The act was almost ritualistic. Destroy the object, try to destroy the dread. But the letter's weight didn't vanish, it sank deeper into my bones, a cold whisper that survival didn't equal freedom. Every second, my mind traced back over every interaction, every hidden glance, every subtle smile that had meant danger all along. Even as the flames consumed the paper, a creeping paranoia settled around me. Had my father left more than words? Was my sister silently scheming, waiting for the perfect moment to act or to retreat, licking her wounds, biding her own time? The ambiguity was suffocating. The story I had lived through didn't feel over. It had merely paused, holding its breath, leaving me suspended between relief and fear. Do you think he'll do more? I whispered, voice barely audible over the crackle of burning paper. He shook his head slowly, yet his eyes didn't meet mine. We can't know, but you've survived everything he threw at you. That strength doesn't vanish. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to anchor myself in that truth. But even as I nodded, my gaze stayed fixed on the curling ash, shadows flickering across the walls like phantoms of the past. The room glowed orange and gold for a fleeting moment, reflecting on my tear-streaked face. Smoke twisted upward, carrying the acrid scent of paper and ink, tangling with the lingering floral notes of jasmine from the garden outside. Every creak of the apartment felt amplified, the flutter of a curtain in the draft sounding like a whispered threat. Even the candlelight danced nervously, as if acknowledging the tension that had returned to my life, silent but insistent. As the flames ate the paper, his words echoed in my head, louder than ever.